Hello guys, Ancient Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco and welcome to my channel. As for this video we have a new GPU comparison, this time one that you've asked, well, quite a lot, which is the RTX 4070 versus the RX 7800 XT versus the RX 7900 GRE. If you want to know more about the 7900 GRE and you want to see actual gameplay, you can watch this video that I'm showing you right now on the screen, where you can see me playing with the card, actually showing the results, explaining you several things about performance, power draw and power limits and so on. And by this time I can already tell that some of you are asking yourselves why not the RTX 4070 Super, or why not, let's say, the RTX 4070 versus 4070 Super versus 7800 XT versus the 7900 GRE, and that would actually be a good benchmark if I had the RTX 4070 Super.
Why?
Yes, because Nvidia and AIB brands like ASRock actually sent me one card before, but other brands don't seem to think that my channel is worthy or something like that. At least that's what I think, so they don't send me any cards. The RX 7900 GRE, I bought it with my own money. The same for the RTX 4070 and, well, not the RX 7800 XT, but I also had to send it back, so it's a bummer when I want to do retest and so on, so yeah. Now let's go into pricing. The RTX 4070 is now costing on Newegg a minimum of $549 for the triple fan design. The RX 7800 XT is costing a minimum of $499, so $50 less than the RTX 4070, while bringing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora as well, which is also a nice addition. And the RX 7900 GRE is unfortunately, well, not selling on Newegg, and I don't even know if they are selling on US at all. But they do sell in Europe. Talking about Europe, the RTX 4070 is selling in Mindfactory Dutchland at a minimum of €579, the RX 7800 XT at €528, plus Avatar as well, so it is not only cheaper than the RTX 4070 as it also brings Avatar, and the RX 7900 GRE is selling at €579, so basically €50 above the 7800 XT, while also bringing Avatar. And if we compare the European prices, you actually have the RX 7900 GRE costing the same as the RTX 4070, while the RX 7800 XT costs €50 less and also brings Avatar. So once again, which card should you lay your hands on? Well, before anything, you should lay your hands on today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Maximum Settings, a cloud-based gaming service where you won't need to spend thousands of dollars to upgrade your PC or a personal nuclear plant to boot up your system.
Just do it!
And for as low as 9.95 Canadian dollars a month, you can play the most recent games on your computer, even if your hardware isn't prepared. Sign up today for your full Linux gaming PC with no resource sharing and start enjoying high-level gaming on any PC. So, benchmarks.
He's right behind you, Issy! He's going to catch us! Keep running!
Plague Tale Requiem is a game that usually runs considerably better on the Nvidia GPUs, and in a matter of fact, the lower powered RTX 4070 is catching up with the RX 7800 XT at 1080p, only losing to the RX 7900 GRE since this game makes use of those additional physical units that the card has. At 1440p, the RX 7800 XT starts pulling ahead, now being 10% faster than the RTX 4070, with the RX 7900 GRE being 23% faster. At 4K this game gets really heavy, dropping almost to half of the FPS we had at 1440p, with the AMD card still being considerably faster, and with the RX 7900 GRE being the only card close to the 60 average FPS mark. In Assassin's Creed Mirage we have some cute charts, because on AMD GPUs this game absolutely needs smart access memory to perform well, with the RX 7900 GRE being only slightly faster than the other two cards now. Something that does not change at 1440p, where the three cards are very close to each other, and even the RX 7900 GRE is only 10% faster than the RTX 4070, while consuming much more power. And to finalize we have 4K results, and these were actually interesting. It seems that we reached a bandwidth bottleneck with the RX 7900 GRE that is now slower than the RX 7800 XT, even with 33% more compute units. But since VRAM frequency is very limited, in some case scenarios, the gains won't be there. In Cyberpunk 2077, besides ray tracing, RDNA 3 really shines, with the RX 7800 XT now being 17% faster than the RTX 4070 at 1080p, with the difference increasing to 27% at 1440p, which is a very good margin for the RX 7800 XT, with the RX 7900 GRE being once again only slightly faster than its little brother. And at 4K we have the same exact scenario as we did with Assassin's Creed Mirage, where both the RX 7800 XT and 7900 GRE are on par. Still, both cards are much faster than the RTX 4070 here, in this case by 38%. Crazy numbers here, but odd result for the 7900 GRE. Moving to Modern Warfare 2 that actually makes a proper use of RDNA 3's dual issue LAUs, we see that the RX 7900 GRE is finally pulling a bit ahead of the RX 7800 XT, as it should, with the same being 25% faster than the RTX 4070 here. At 1440p the differences in between the cards get bigger, and the RTX 4070 now struggles to push over 110 FPS. And at 4K, well, the difference is massive, with the RTX 4070 not even reaching 70 average FPS, while the RX 7800 XT is pushing 86, being 26% faster. And of course, the RX 7900 GRE being also 14% faster than the RX 7800 XT here. And Forza Horizon 5 is another game that loves smart access memory and resizable bar, and we do get a nice performance uplift even with NVIDIA GPUs. At 1080p the AMD GPUs just dominate in this game, of course, with the RX 7900 GRE now being around 12% faster than the other two cards, and at 1440p the scales get maintained, with the AMD cards still being faster, especially the RX 7900 GRE, of course. And at 4K the RX 7800 XT is now 12% faster than the RTX 4070, nothing astonishing though, as the AMD cards also consume more power. And moving to Hogwarts Legacy, at 1080p we have the same scenario as before, with the AMD cards being superior, with the RX 7800 XT getting a 17% performance increase from overclocking here, putting it very close to the RX 7900 GRE. At 1440p this game tells you even more how much it loves raw power, with the RX 7800 XT now being 40, and I repeat 40% faster than the RTX 4070, which is just insane. And it gets much worse at 4K, where the RX 7900 GRE, for example, gets really close to the 60 average FPS mark, and the RTX 4070 barely touches 40. And Microsoft Flight Simulator is a game that tends to favor the newest NVIDIA GPUs, but even with that in mind, the AMD cards are slightly faster here, not much of course, because of a mild CPU bottleneck, but faster. At 1440p the bottleneck goes away, and the RX 7900 GRE shows that having 33% more computer units does help in some scenarios, being in this case 17% faster than the RX 7800 XT, and 25% faster than the RTX 4070, which is quite a lot. And as soon as we go to 4K, things get even better for the RX 7900 GRE that is now pushing comfortably over 70 FPS, with the RX 7800 XT now being around 12% faster than the RTX 4070 as well. Alan Wake 2 is another game that surprised me, as the game actually tends to run better on AMD GPUs unless you're using ray tracing. Also have in consideration that the current 7800 XT results will be slightly higher as they improve the performance with the 24.1.1 preview driver, but sadly I don't have the card available anymore to retest. Still, the RX 7800 XT is faster than the RTX 4070 here, with the RX 7900 GRE being considerably faster, in this case by 29%. At 1440p the differences get maintained, with the RX 7900 GRE still being the fastest card and the RTX 4070 being the slowest. And at 4K it is more of the same, with none of these cards reaching 60 FPS without upscaling, with the closest to it being once again the RX 7900 GRE. As for Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, as you can see I do not have the RX 7800 XT results because once again I had to send the card back to AMD. But anyway, as for the results, we have the RTX 4070 now being very close to the RX 7900 GRE, since this game is always using some kind of ray tracing enabled, and that's where the NVIDIA cards tend to excel, so that's normal. As we go to 1440p, the number of physical units on the RX 7900 GRE make it slightly faster than the RTX 4070, and the same applies to 4K as well. Remember though that if the RTX 4070 is matching the GRE here, it means that it would most definitely be faster than the RX 7800 XT in this game. That's a given. With Starfield, we get the AMD cards getting a pretty good performance boost by using smart XeSS memory, which is nice, with the RX 7800 XT now being 9% faster than the RTX 4070, which is not much if we consider the additional power draw. At 1440p things change less than I was expecting at least, and all cards can push over 60 FPS, but of course the AMD ones are still faster, with the RX 7900 GRE being 12% faster than the RX 7800 XT and 21% faster than the RTX 4070. To finalize, we have 4K results, and the only card getting remotely close to the 60 average FPS is the RX 7900 GRE, with the RX 7800 XT staying in the high 50s and the RTX 4070 in the low 50s. The Last of Us is another title where smart XeSS memory is crucial for the AMD cards, because without it, even the RX 7900 GRE would be much slower than the RTX 4070, which was something that happened for around 4 months after AMD and the developers, well, actually got it working. At 1440p the difference gets bigger, and the RX 7800 XT is now 24% faster than the RTX 4070, but at the same time I get what I believe to be a bandwidth bottleneck on the RX 7900 GRE that makes it perform on the 7800 XT level, something that still happens at 4K sadly. And the last rasterization benchmark is God of War. As soon as Ragnarok comes to PC, it will replace this benchmark of course. At 1080p we can see that both AMD GPUs are considerably faster here, with the RX 7800 XT being 25% ahead of the RTX 4070. At 1440p the NVIDIA GPUs do get some ground, the NVIDIA GPU does get some ground, compared to 1080p, and the RX 7900 GRE is once again only slightly faster than the RX 7800 XT. And at 1440p ultra-wide, all cards can deliver over 90 average FPS, with the AMD ones once again being faster, but not by that much. And we do have the 11 games average now, as Avatar is not included of course. The RX 7800 XT seems to be around 11% faster than the RTX 4070 at 1080p, 15% faster at 1440p, and 17% faster at 4K. With the RX 7900 GRE that now costs the same as the RTX 4070, at least in Europe of course, being over 20% faster at 1080p, 26% faster at 1440p, and 27% faster at 4K. Meaning that if you can get both at the same price, the GRE is generally a better choice for rasterization. But what about ray tracing? Let's see.
We're not from here either. Stellantis locked us up here a year ago.
The first ray tracing benchmark is with Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. Here we sincerely have some really interesting results. The RTX 4070 is 13% faster than the RX 7800 XT at 1080p, 17% faster at 1440p, and 20% faster at 4K. It is important to look at the 1% lows, that besides 4K are much higher with the AMD cards. Although as we go to Nvidia's tech demo, also known as Cyberpunk 2077, we have a different story. Here the RTX 4070 is not only considerably faster in terms of ray tracing, being 32% faster than the RX 7800 XT, but also 42% faster when using upscaling, which is a major difference gameplay-sided. As we go to 1440p, the Nvidia card still does fairly better than both AMD GPUs, but now delivers 5 FPS more than the RX 7900 GRE, for example. But when using upscaling, the difference shoots up to 13 FPS, and going from 62 to 75 FPS can definitely be felt in real-world gameplay. An easy win for the Nvidia card here. Resident Evil 4 shows another story though, one where the RTX 4070 is much more efficient in terms of ray tracing for sure, losing less performance when compared to the AMD GPUs, but is still behind of both of them with and without ray tracing. At 1440p it gets worse for the RTX 4070 that is now slower in all case scenarios, and I believe it is because of the bandwidth and VRAM here, since the game needs a lot of it, especially when using ray tracing. And at 1440p ultra-wide, well, the RX 7800 XT is 18% faster than the RTX 4070 in rasterization and 10% faster with ray tracing enabled. Moving to Spider-Man Remastered, we're kind of CPU bottlenecked at 1080p, with the Nvidia card still delivering slightly higher results. Moving to 1440p though makes the RX 7900 GRE stand out as the faster card in all scenarios, delivering better performance than the RTX 4070 in raster and ray tracing, with the RX 7800 XT not doing that bad as well. And at 4K we can see the real benchmarks, and funnily enough, the RX 7800 XT managed to catch up with the RTX 4070, even at 4K, where both deliver virtually the same results, with the RX 7900 GRE being the fastest card here. And the last ray tracing benchmark is with Ratchet and Clank. This is one of those games that needs a lot of bandwidth to work properly since it uses direct storage. Maybe that's why we got those low 1% lows here, I don't really know. At 1080p the RTX 4070 is considerably slower in raster, but also considerably faster in ray tracing, something that does not change at all at 1440p, where the Nvidia card is 21% faster than the RX 7800 XT and 15% faster than the RX 7900 GRE. This of course in terms of ray tracing, because generally it is slower. Here we see the RX 7900 GRE being barely faster than the RX 7800 XT, and I believe it is once again due to the lack of bandwidth to feed all those extra physical units.
Members of the Resistance, report to your nearest...
To end the benchmarks with upscaling, we have Ratchet and Clank. You can see here that the RX 7800 XT is faster when running native, but as soon as we do DLSS versus FSR, the Nvidia card is able to catch up, being on par in terms of averages and much better in terms of 1% lows. At 4K, since we're upscaling from 1440p to 4K, things change a bit, and now the RX 7800 XT is able to outmatch the RTX 4070. But the Nvidia card does get, or indeed does gain, a good margin when using DLSS compared to the native resolution performance, which is nice to see. What's also interesting to see is how the RX 7900 GRE actually performs slower than the RX 7800 XT. Once again because it has way lower VRAM frequencies, lacking bandwidth to fill all those physical units in scenarios like this game, where we have direct storage and on top of that we use upscaling, things that use bandwidth as well. And to finish the benchmarks we have Spider-Man Remastered, and one more time we see XeSS underperforming compared to FSR and DLSS. But that's normal, as with Intel GPUs it performs the same way in terms of performance, of course. In this game, the scales are well set, with the RX 7800 XT and RTX 4070 being on par in terms of native resolution, but with the Nvidia GPU being slightly faster when using DLSS. Nothing relevant, but it is there. As for the RX 7900 GRE, it is the fastest GPU here without a doubt, both in native and upscaling. Let's move to the conclusion so I can actually explain you some more things. Well, first of all, we need to consider the 7900 GRE is at the same price as the RTX 4070, and even in Europe you can get the RTX 4070 Super right now, and it will cost around 100 euros above the cheapest RTX 4070, at least 70 euros above that. So it still costs more than the 7900 GRE, of course, and costs way more than the 7800 XT. In terms of rasterization, we can see, of course, that the 7800 XT is not only cheaper, while it is also performing faster than the RTX 4070 in terms of rasterization, and brings more VRAM, and the only downside is basically the power draw. So the RTX 4070 is an exceptional card. It brings way better power draw, so around 200 watts comparing to the 290 watts overclock versus overclock on the 7800 XT. While the 7900 GRE is actually an interesting card, because if you can find one overclock versus overclock at the maximum settings you can get it, basically pushing the GPU to its maximum, it has exactly the same power limit as the 7800 XT. So it is 290 watts versus 290 watts, but since it has more physical units, in games that don't actually need that much bandwidth and can make use of those physical units, it will be considerably faster, from 10 to 20% depending on the title, of course, and resolution, from 10 to 20% faster than the 7800 XT, while usually consuming the same power at a maximum of 290 watts. And both these cards are faster than the 4070, of course, while the 7900 GRE costs the same and the 7800 XT is once again cheaper, and both pack 16GB VRAM versus the 12GB VRAM on the 4070. And of course, on top of that, they also bring Avatar, which is actually a very nice game. Better than I thought, sincerely better than I thought. So you have a card costing the same and performing better, a card performing better and costing less than the 4070, and both of those options bring Avatar included, so it's a win-win situation. As for the 4070, the only thing that it does better usually is in terms of upscaling. The DLSS is still better than FSR in terms of quality, hands down, even more if we're talking about lower resolutions, for example upscaling at 1440p. Frame generation does not bring as many FPS as FSR3 frame generation for sure, but in terms of quality it is generally better, only slightly better, because FSR3 frame generation is actually very good. But on the other hand, frame generation from Nvidia is in way more titles, currently at least, than FSR3 frame generation. Although in the past few days we've been reading some news about new games getting FSR3 frame generation really fast. So in the last few days we actually got 4 games with frame generation included, which were Modern Warfare 3, that somehow for me does not work, Farming Simulator 2022, which works for me perfectly, it is also working very nice, and we now have the Talos Principle 2, I believe, which also included frame generation from FSR3 today. So it's a win-win situation. If you want to wait some time, the 7800 XT is definitely the best price performance card that you can get. And if you can get the GRE for, let's say, 50 euros more in Europe, well, I would get that card, because in some scenarios it is considerably better, and at the same time, well, it consumes the same power. So for 50 euros more, I would get it. Costs 10% more, but in some scenarios can perform up to 20% better. For me, definitely the deal. And well guys, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe and share this video, as that really helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave your comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about the performance of these cards. Which card would you get and why exactly? And remember, the RTX 4070 Super is still around $100, 100 euros above the 4070. So it would put it more or less on par in terms of pricing with the 7900 XT, because you can get a 7900 XT around $700, $709 on Newegg, and that's basically the price take it 50 more or 50 less, that you could get the 4070 Super. And the 7900 XT has 20 gigabytes VRAM compared to the 12 gigabytes VRAM on the 4070 Super. And it performs better than the 4070 Ti, that performs better than the 4070 Super. So at that price, $50 more, the 7900 XT is still the way to go, so the 4070 Super wouldn't really make much of a difference here. Once again, thank you very much for watching, leave your comment in the comment section and see you in the next video, guys. Cheers!